1886 until now. So this is such a short period of time. We're talking about 10, 15 years. If you look at the cars from now to 15 years ago, they look about the same. So it is a really big revolution on the automotive segment.
We were sort of well, we have so far in the session referring to cars, but Frank, I'd love to get your thoughts on, you know, the different modes of transport that are also going to be affected, and also we've sort of talked about the Y and the X axis so far, but there's also the Z axis. The sky is the limit.
All right, the flying cars are coming.
Exactly, so I want to get your thoughts on flying cars.
So, high level, anything that moves from point A to point B, where there's an economic incentive to take the driver or the pilot out, it's going to happen, right? Because ultimately algorithms will be safer than human pilots or drivers, and so ships, planes, automobiles, like you name it, right? The shopping cart will go autonomous so that it can bring stuff to your house, right? So, in the limit, everything will get autonomy, which is great, because then the incremental cost of getting you from place to place or your stuff from place to place will approach zero, right? Like that's the goal. On the flying car stuff, you know, some people will argue that the flying cars are easier because there's fewer of them up there, right? And so I talk to a lot of people who work on systems like the systems that you work on. If you could wave a magic wand and take the humans out, I think the algorithms are ready right now. Like we could just like wave a magic wand and say there are no drivers. The algorithms today are just about ready. And so the thing that makes it difficult is you and me. It's our fault that self-driving is not here because we are crazy people. And trying to anticipate what we will do in every situation is sort of the rate limiting step. And so like, look, in the air, there's very little of that. And so I think the technology will sort of be easier, which is ironic, for self-flying. Then the question is economics. Like, in what corridors does it make sense to operate a flying car service? And you know, not all corridors make sense, right? JFK downtown to the downtown Manhattan, that's a corridor, right? Here to Heathrow, maybe that's a corridor. But getting flying cars to go sort of everywhere is probably not going to happen before we get self-driving cars on the road.
So maybe just to relate to, I agree with what was said, relate to this and also to the rule point that was made. The way at least we see this is these technologies obviously cost billions and billions of dollars, involve a lot of risk, and they're going to be best monetized in urban dense areas where there's a lot of revenues per capita, and so you'll see the self-driving cars first there. You'll see the self-flying vehicles, if you will, first in those corridors. But that technology will be made available for mass consumption, including ownership, into rural areas over time. So it's very likely that once we see the technology mature in the cities and monetized in ride-sharing contexts across many, many millions of people living in rural areas will get the same technology. It'll just take a bit longer, and it will be less efficient because it's just less people there, so we're going to have to buy it, or the ownership model will not be as efficient, but it will be there. And I'm 100% convinced that in the rural areas in 20 to 30 years there will be very few people actually driving to the grocery shop back and forth. On the Elevate, as Uber calls it, Uber Elevate, that's coming, and it's one of the most exciting things that we can look for. It will be 60 miles radius in the most dense areas and the most popular routes to Heathrow and back, to Long Island and back in New York City, and the Bay Area where I'm now, which I can't wait for. And again, it will then proliferate to less dense areas and less exciting routes, if you will.
Brilliant, thank you. I just want to check, how much longer have we got?
Okay.
Oh, that's a shame. I know, well, the clock's been ticking, but I thought we had till past, but clearly not. So I just want to very, very, very quickly, in one sentence, wrap up. How is transport going to look 11 years from today? And the reason I say 11 years is because it was 11 years ago that the iPhone came into our world, and I think it. So just very, very quickly. Michael, do you want to kick it off?
Mostly electric, very much shared, and without drivers in the most dense areas.
Yeah, perfectly summed up. That's exactly how we view the world too. And plus, our stuff comes to us near free.
I think that's true, and I'd add to that, still in one sentence, that I think that will result in a complete change in the way we live and work as well. So much of our lives are conditioned around the morning commute. You know, the average American spends 40 minutes every day commuting, stuck in traffic. Everyone hates doing that, worst part of everyone's day. Imagine the glorious change in your life if you never have to be stuck in a traffic jam in the morning on the way to work.
Agreed. And Lucas, finally.
I think micromobility will play a bigger role in cities. Electric bikes and scooters and all of these micro segments, plus on top of what was said. But I think also third world countries will face a political backlash to keep older technologies as it happened before. So this will happen in first world countries, but big populations like India, Brazil, so on, they will be pushed back. We're not going to see autonomous cars in the next 11 years.
Brilliant. Well, guys, very insightful. Thank you so much for being with us. And a few of our panelists are going to be heading to their speaker's corner, which I think is downstairs, but there's someone going to be at the back with a little lollipop so you can follow them if you have any questions for our panelists. Huge round of applause. Thank you so much, guys.